Oh, hello, hello. All right, we are in January working on the power of directional focus, and today we're going to be talking about directing our words. So, if you haven't listened to the other two episodes that I did in January, I'll give you just a super quick recap. So, the first episode, we talked about the power of directional focus. We talked about how a lot of times when people are setting an intention, they're also setting a counter intention. And then that pulls the attention, it splits the attention. And a lot of times people go back and forth with their attention. And when I say attention, that attention might be like visual attention, it might be their verbal attention, it might be their action-based attention, right? Because we have different ways that we're existing, right? So we have thoughts going in a direction, we have words going in a direction, we have actions going in a direction. Our emotions, that's what we talked about last week, is the emotional guidance system and how our emotional guidance will help us know which direction we're going in. So today we're going to talk about words. So words are more powerful than thoughts because they're going to have a thought energy that's charged with emotional energy, and there's a vibrational quality, and then those words go out into the world, right? So if I think to myself, I am the queen of abundance, that's nice. That's fine. That's a good thought. And if I say that out loud, there's more oomph, right? The universe hears it differently. So in a manifestation, the words that we speak really, really matter. Now, in theory, all of your words are spells. They're all creative. They all do something. So let's talk about this in context of our goals. So again, most of the time with a big goal or a big intention or a target or whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish or do or be or have or whatever, there's these counter intentions. What's interesting that I'll share with you is when I'm listening to clients and they're using their words, I can tell if their words are going in the direction of what they want or what they don't want. And I just want to acknowledge here that a lot of times you could be on a way to what you do want, but not be there yet. All right. Because this is usually the part where people are like, I'm not there yet. And a lot of times that if you combine like fear, right, that fear having your attention, you start to get into a low vibe territory. Now, all of a sudden, your words are going in this opposite direction. And a lot of times people will talk about what is, like what's happening currently, and paying more attention to that than what they're creating, which again, it's not about policing every word that comes out of your mouth, but let me just share this with you. So recently I was working with someone and we were moving toward a goal, right? And there was a period of time where she was starting, let's say she's starting here and she's going there, that she was in this in-between place. So she wasn't where she started, but she wasn't where she was going yet. Now, that gives us two options for what we could do with our words, with our focus and our words. So if I take my focus and I look for all the ways I'm closer than I was, if I took my focus and I look and I speak about all the ways that I'm improving, all the ways that are getting better, things are going great, all the ways I'm feeling different, noticing this new reality coming into my existence, I'm going to be pulling that in with my words. I'm going to be matching that with my words. I'm going to be in that place. But if I'm talking about where I'm at and why it's not at the place, or I haven't gone far enough yet, or it's not working yet, or there's something wrong with me, now I'm taking my words and I'm going in the opposite direction with my words. And this is one of the places where I see women do the most counterproductive things with their manifestation abilities. So, and this is really full life. This is not just about business, not just about money. This is about love, marriage, your body, your children, everything else. Right? A lot of times we put negative words onto people, onto situations, onto ourselves. And then we wonder why we're creating these little manifestations that might look okay, but don't feel good, or might take forever, or whatever else. It's like you're the creator of your realities. And I love words because you can hear them. A lot of times when you're in your own mind, if you're not super aware, or if you're a little tired, your thoughts might go down a crazy train. And you don't know until you feel bad. But when you're saying things out loud, you can hear them. And that's a huge just benefit to being able to get clarity on what direction they're going. So for this example, I'm just going to use like a launch, right? Because I feel like a launch, everybody, even if you're not in online sales, you know what a launch is. If you don't know, it's like when you're selling something, there's usually an open cart, a closed cart. And so there's a set period of time that you're going to be launching. Now, a thing about launches, if you're not in online space, is that the vast majority of sales are going to happen the day that the cart opens and the day that the cart closes. So if you have a 10-day launch, you're going to not make sales in the middle. You just might not. or you might make a little bit of sales, or you might make no sales, right? And that's just part of an online launch. Let's just say the goal is to make 100 sales, and then there's a fear that I'm going to not make enough sales, whatever that means, right? Not make enough sales. So the words that I use are either going to be moving my energy towards making the sales, or they're going to be pulling my attention and my energy towards not making enough sales, right? So using my words to go in the direction of where I want are going to be, this is going so well. I'm learning so much. I'm showing up so fully. I trust. I'm choosing to trust that the right people are going to buy. I'm choosing to trust that this is all working out for me. I'm choosing to know that however this goes, like everything's all good. And if I'm taking my words and I'm going in the direction, this isn't working, what's wrong with this? Why aren't more people buying? Did I do something wrong? Am I doing enough? Right? And questions also direct attention. So your questions, even them, your questions will direct your thought energy. So if I say, how can this get any better? I'm going to get a real different answer than if I say, well, what's wrong with me? Right? Most of us are asking the wrong questions. We're like, what's wrong with me? Why is this taking so long? And then the mind is going to go answer. So if you don't want the answer to a question, don't ask it. But that's how we're using our words. And you can also tell, if you really pay attention to your words, you'll notice that they also have a vibe. They're also going to inspire good feelings, like, yes, this is all working. Excitement, exuberance, eagerness to serve, right? Or they're going to feel like failure. They're going to feel heavy. They're going to feel dense. They're going to feel shameful. They're going to feel, they're going to feel like failure. But words are another place that if you want a different reality, you have to get control over your words, which is fine because you're going to speak those words consciously anyhow. Well, some of us do some unconscious speaking, but so pay attention to your words. And if you just imagine that your words are not so much observational as command, right? So if you think about your words as the words that I speak are creative, they're creating this, it gives you a little bit more clarity, right? So it's not just, are these words true? That's really the wrong guidance for how I'm talking about looking at your words. It's going to be, if these words were true, am I speaking what I want? If these words were true, and they are, right? They're true in a different timeline. They're true, but not yet. They're true, but not yet. All right. So if I'm speaking truth into existence, right? So if I'm baking this cake, am I baking a cake that I want, or am I baking a cake that I don't want? Right. And I want you to understand too that in the context of relationships and other people, the words that you speak about people impact your experience of them. So if you're going to, sometimes people want to shit talk their spouses or their kids or their relatives or whatever else. And I'm like, that plays into the experience that you have of them. Now, you're never responsible for what somebody else does, but you are responsible for your experience that you're capable of having with people. And if you're out spewing negative or unkind words about people, chances are you're going to create a negative or unkind experience with those people. That's just how that goes. And a lot of these things happen in that energetic realm. So even if you're talking to, a friend of yours, those vibes are out there. Those words make a difference. And you don't need to get super serious with this. I'm not trying to freak you out. Like, of course, a good complaint every now and then, or a good venting session, or obviously, like, sometimes we need to sort something out with our coaches, our therapists, our practitioners. We get to tell them the truth of what is when we're trying to solve a problem. So I don't want to I don't want to freak you out about your words. A lot of times I'll just see clients undoing their efforts with their words. They're like, just imagine if you're planting seeds in the garden and then shit talking the seeds, you're cursing your own creation. Anyways, it's just something for you guys to think about. It's just something to think about with the words. Are these words going in the direction of where I want to be going? Are these words encouraging? Are these words full of the energy of increase? Are these words full of the energy of decrease? Which direction are they going in? They're going toward what I want. They're going toward what I don't want. A lot of times people will fucking curse themselves into getting stuck, procrastinating. The stories you tell about yourself, they're true. The stories you tell about yourself, they're true. So if you don't like the story that you're living, tell a different story. And it might take a minute, but there'll be a little gap in time. But I'll tell you, years ago, I used to talk about what a disaster I was. I used to say this, I'm such a disaster. I'm such a hot mess. And I'll tell you, I was always the lady. I was 10 minutes late, dragging my kids, coffee on my boob, like hot mess. I would never say that about myself anymore. I just wouldn't, right? But then it was true, and now that's not something I would say, and it's not true, right? And so now I talk about other things. I'm such a magical being, I'm so creative, full of divinity, whatever. And then that's true. So the things you say about yourself, they're true. They might have a gap in time. If you're telling yourself something brand new, there'll be a gap in time. But pay attention. I would challenge you this week. Notice everything that comes out of your mouth with an I am. Anything that comes out of your mouth with I am is a direction straight to the subconscious. It takes that as a command. It's not an observation. So if I say I'm such a hot mess, I'm going to be a hot mess because that's the command I'm giving myself. Right now, if you're starting, like I said, if you're starting a whole new command, there might be a little bit of a delay, but even then you'll start to feel it differently. Now, I'm going to talk about affirmations here for just a second. So affirmations are also creative and they're spoken out loud. And so a couple of things about affirmations that I just want you to understand. Affirmations we want to set as instructions for the universe. So we need them to be as specific as possible while leaving room. So you don't want to get too specific. How am I trying to describe this? It's like if you get too specific, you're kind of in the realm of controlling. It slows things down. It gets a little contracty. But if you're like super vague, nothing really happens. I'm happy, vague, right? Like that's not a great affirmation. So you want to, like, I am the owner of a multi-million-dollar business. Great. I'm serving thousands of people a year in my podcast, courses, books, XYZ. Great. You want to give the universe something it can work with. So you need it to be specific enough that it's something to work with. You don't want to be so specific that you're going to slow it down unless that's super important to you. And if you need something very specific for something, well, then go ahead and slow it down. It's up to you. But what else do I want to say about affirmations? So affirmations, we always want to put in present tense. And the reason for this is because if I'm affirming that I will have money, I'm creating the state, I'm creating the experience, I'm creating the energy of I don't have money and the money's in the future. And that will create the experience of that money always being just out of reach. Right? So we want it to be present tense, where I want to point out here is sometimes when we're doing our affirmations, we will feel like it's not true. The body will be like, no, liar, liar, pants on fire. That's not true. And what that really is you're out of tune to the thing that you're trying to create. So let's just say, for example, I say to myself, I'm a multimillionaire. I'm a multimillionaire. Currently, that's not true. I'm not currently a multimillionaire, but I'm giving myself instructions. All right. So I'm giving myself instructions. So I'm saying I'm a multimillionaire, right? So I'm giving myself a command. Now my body's going to respond to that. Now I've been practicing that one. So that feels really neutral. That feels normal to me. It feels like it could be true. It feels just as much as saying I'm married, which is true. Like I'm married. That's true. I have 2 kids. That's true. Right. And so when I say I'm a multimillionaire, even though it hasn't happened yet, it feels true. Right. Now, last year when I was saying that, I felt tension around it. I felt like a liar. And what that really was is my nervous system wasn't tuned to that. So I had to practice. So if you're saying your affirmations and you feel your body tense up or you feel your body not like being like, oh no, girl, no. Play with the words until you get something that resonates. And then from there you can stretch and expand. So when I was saying I'm a multimillionaire, at first I that felt like a lie. But I would say, well, I've made millions of dollars online already. And that was already true. So that felt true, right? I'm saying I'm becoming a a multi-million-dollar business owner. And that felt true, right? But again, now that's out into the future. So you have to play with these things. Any place where your body tenses up, those are places to breathe into, to tell your body, I'm safe here. This is becoming true and I'll be safe with it, right? Because a lot of times the mind is the fastest to get on track with something new. The emotional body then comes next, right? So when the mind is saying, oh, I want this, let me paint this fun little picture, the emotions hop right on board and they're like, oh, that's cool. The nervous system is a little bit slower. The body's a little bit slower. So you might think about that and then your body tenses up and brings up all these fears about what it might mean, or are people still going to like me, or am I still going to be in my community or whatever else? And that tightness or that tension, that means that your body's not all the way ready to receive that yet. So that's a place to expand into. And I'll tell you guys, in Limitless Wealth, which is my mastermind program, my year-long mastermind program, I started to incorporate nervous system work. I hired a whole additional coach, and we have this thing called the SSP and the R&R protocols. And they're sounds that you listen to that help to expand the nervous system. And that work for me has been life-changing. And because it's a lot of times it's not our mind that gets in the way of our manifestation. It's not even our emotions that get in the way. It's not our energy that gets in the way of the manifestation. It's that our body's freaking out a little bit, right? Because this new reality that you want to go into, the body's all like, I know what's going on here and I feel safe in this reality, even if your reality sucks. Like your body's all like, but I know how to like stay alive here. What you're talking about, I don't really know if I know how to stay alive there. And that's very upsetting. And sometimes, there'll be fears like, oh, if I make this much money or if I have this much success, people won't like me. I'll get kicked out of my communities, right? Which is very upsetting to bodies that co-regulate with each other. So anyways, that's just a little nugget for you guys to know and understand. Because for the longest time, I didn't really understand that. It was just my body's out of tune for the vibe that I'm seeking, right? So when I'm really playing with a new frequency, if you want to be woo-woo about it, but I'm creating something new, right? So my mind goes to a new place in the reality. Then my emotions match and I can feel that, but that new frequency, that new energy, that new mental state, emotional state, sometimes will make the body a little tense, right? So you just want to play with it. Stretch into it, bring your attention in, put your hand on your heart, tell yourself, oh, it's safe for me. It's safe. This is safe for me to receive. This is safe for me to receive. I'm okay here. And tune yourself. You got to tune yourself. So the body's going to give you that signal. So that's really important. I just wanted you to know. All right. So next week, we will talk about taking aligned actions around our power of directional focus. And then the last week of this month, I'm having a special guest on who you're going to love. So all very, very exciting. So again, if you want to go deep onto the power of directional focus and you want to really master these things that I'm talking about in January, go to the show notes and there'll be a link to the astonishing power of directional focus. And it's just a little workshop. So it's quick, but there's 5 tools that I teach in there with exercises and journal prompts and things like that for you to really understand at a deep, deep level how to direct your focus. So this would be important for you if you're manifesting, if you want speed, if you want clarity, if you've been back and forth, if you felt confused, if you've been procrastinating, this is going to be really helpful for you. All right. I love you so much. I'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.